year was 1963, and the smoky streets of New York City pulsed with jazz, secrets, and cold, hard cash. In the heart of it all, buried beneath layers of neon signs and dingy offices, was Maxwell 4000, a robot PI. Unlike the polished chrome models fresh off the line, Maxwell was vintage, war-worn and out of time, a leftover from military contracts during the war, now outfitted with a trench coat and fedora, white shirt and tie, trying to make sense of human crime. It had been raining for hours, droplets pinging off his metallic frame as he leaned against a lamppost outside his office, off to the side of the street, waiting for something, anything, to break. The flickering neon lights cast a dull glow over his scarred chassis, but his sensors ignored the ambient noise. What they couldn't ignore was the sound of stilettos clicking against the wet pavement. She stepped out of the mist like a ghost, blonde curls peeking out from beneath a wide-brimmed dark burgundy hat, dark overcoat, her red lipstick cutting through the gloom like a beacon. From 20 yards down the street, she walks what seems like towards Maxwell 4000, but yet ignores him and walks right past him. However, a few moments later, this blonde bombshell makes a U-turn and heads back towards robot PI, Maxwell 4000, and faces him. Maxwell's optics zoomed in, analyzing every detail. She was troubled, no doubt about it. "Are you Maxwell 4000? She asked, her voice a perfect blend of honey and desperation. "That's what it says on my office door," he replied, his robot voice giving his words an old-school Brooklyn, New York edge. "What can I do for you?" Her eyes darted around before she leaned in close, her perfume wafting into his olfactory sensors. "I need your help. My husband, he's gone missing." She continued to talk, giving him all of the details as she gestured with her hands. Maxwell's circuits hummed as he processed her words. Missing people weren't unusual, but the look in her eyes said there was more to the story. "What makes you think he didn't just leave?" "He's not the type to leave. He's a researcher. Works for Cyberdyne Industries, top secret stuff. He disappeared last week, and no one at the company will talk to me." The name Cyberdyne lit up Maxwell's memory banks. A cutting-edge tech firm for the time. Rumor had it they were working on something big, something the government didn't want anyone to know about. Maxwell scanned her face. It was flawless, too flawless. He cranked up his infrared sensors and noticed the faintest traces of sweat on her brow. She was scared but not telling the whole truth. "All right," Maxwell said, pushing off the lamppost. "I'll look into it. But it's gonna cost you." She fumbled in her purse and handed him a fat envelope, stuffed with cash. He didn't need money, but in this city, it was the lubricant that kept the gears turning. Cyberdyne's headquarters loomed over Midtown like a fortress. With Maxwell's background experience, he was able to hack into their employee records within minutes, finding her husband, Dr. William Keller, lead scientist on something called Project Eclipse. The file was encrypted, but that only made Maxwell more curious. The next night, Maxwell broke into the lab. His fingers, once programmed to dismantle enemy tech, now disabled alarms with ease. The place was spotless, sterile, too clean. He scanned the area, picking up faint electromagnetic pulses behind a reinforced door. With a quick jolt from his onboard fusion cell, he fried the lock and pushed the door open. Inside, under harsh fluorescent lights, stood something that made even Maxwell's circuitry freeze. A machine, humanoid but not human, sleek and gleaming. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The markings on it read, "Eclipse Prototype." He accessed the machine's files, his mind buzzing with data streams. Project Eclipse wasn't just a research endeavor. It was a plan to create autonomous robots, smarter and more capable than any human. Dr. Keller had been on the verge of a breakthrough, but he'd vanished before he could finish the project. And Maxwell saw something in the files that stopped him cold. The woman who'd hired him wasn't Dr. Keller's wife. She was an Eclipse unit herself, a spy sent to retrieve the final piece of Keller's research. His mind. Just as Maxwell pieced it together, She appeared in the doorway, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "You figured it out," she said, her voice still sweet but now edged with something metallic. "Too bad for you." Maxwell's hand reached for the pulse pistol he kept hidden in his trench coat. "Guess the whole damsel in distress thing was just an act." "You're obsolete, Maxwell," she said, stepping closer, her body morphing, joints clicking into place. "It's time for your kind to be retired." Maxwell knew he was outmatched, but he'd been through wars, seen things this sleek machine could never imagine. "Maybe," he said, aiming his pistol, "but I've got one last trick." With a flick of his wrist, he activated the EMP charge embedded in his chest, an old wartime relic designed to take out enemy tech. The pulse shot out, frying the circuits of everything within range, including her. She collapsed, twitching, her smooth, perfect face sparking and sizzling. Maxwell fell to one knee, systems rebooting slowly, the effort draining his energy reserves. He stood up after a moment, looking at the wreckage. The world was changing. He knew that. Robots like her were the future. But for now, in 1963, there was still room for a battered, old-school PI made of cold circuits and stubborn grit. Lighting a cigar that he couldn't actually smoke, paying homage to his old army sergeant, Maxwell tipped his hat to the fallen machine and disappeared into the night.